Parks Commission of November 4th. Please rise for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I motion.
Second.
All right. Consent agenda.
Need a vote.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, consent agenda. Approval of the Park Commission minutes from October 1st.
All motion. To approve.
Well, we didn't have any to go over.
Yeah, there weren't any in our packet.
That's true. I read everything else.
Okay, that's down to me. I didn't check the packet before it went out. I'll make sure they get sent out to you tomorrow.
Appreciate
My
that.
recommendation would be to table that item, just so it's officially tabled, and then we can approve it at the next council meeting, at the next park commission meeting, as an official action, so that's what I would recommend.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to table this item.
I motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Brings us to open forum. Do we have anybody here or online to speak at Parks meeting?
Chair, there is nobody online at the Zoom.
I heard the ding dong.
All right. Council update. Commissioner Trost.
Chair and Commission, thank you very much. So we had a few things we went over, one of which was the Morris Leatherman survey, which I've asked staff to come in and present to you all today, specifically the pieces related to parks, because there were a few things that were in there that I thought would be good for you all to be able to discuss and ask questions on. And then we approved going out to bid for Elsie Stevens Park North Pedestrian Bridge. That's the bridge closest to the river. We moved forward with the bounce pillow idea, and by that I mean we directed staff to go out and look at opportunities for grants and covering costs and those kind of things. And then we purchased land off of 117th Avenue. And we voted to install irrigation and wells at the city parks to help get the grass watered for upcoming years. Our goal was to get it done this fall, so that way it'll be ready for next spring. I stand for any questions you may have.
So you discussed the bounce pillow. Did you guys discuss the workout area as well?
Yes, the workout area was also discussed and asked staff to find grants to see what we do to cover it. Yes, sir.
Anybody else have questions? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I'll move on to staff update.
Matt's given most of what I was going to put in there, but that's fine. With the next council meeting, we should have the results of the bridge bid. It was open last Thursday. The bids came in substantially under the engineer's estimate. So we're working through what that looks like and make sure that everything's complete in the bids before we bring them to council. But their objective is to get to council's next meeting for approval. We had a discussion a little bit a while ago about trails. I did talk to Three Rivers Park District about the trail along Territorial Road. They are interested in partnering with us on that. It would be fit for their Rush Creek Regional Trail Network up there. So we'll be negotiating with those guys. It's not in their budget for 2025. It's likely to be a 2026 project as far as they're concerned.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I have.
All right, thank you, Marty. Do you know the date of the LC Stevens bids, when we're gonna start expecting those back? Ultimately, I'm curious to know,
The bid for,
LC Stevens Bridge, never mind, my bad. The LC Steven, when we were talking about equipment for the final bid, do we know, we had a discussion, I wanna say
Oh, yeah.
2 months ago, about what we would like to see at these parks.
Yeah.
LC Steven, the water park, stuff like that, and then another park at the same time.
so we will be working with Paul Kangas on that. We've been focusing on the bridge and the irrigation part up to now. Now we'll transition into getting the bid documentation and package stuff ready for the rest of LC Stevens Park and Area 21 and the Iron Gardens thing. So I would say in the next 2 months we should see something, have something to share with you guys on that.
Okay. Anybody have questions for Marty?
No.
All right, we'll move on to the regular meeting. The resident survey.
So just one quick thing, I've included some shots in here for the Jack-o'-lantern pumpkin trail. I don't know if any of you guys were there, but it was
Awesome.
a successful evening. A lot of pumpkins, I think it's something like 150 pumpkins turned up, and
Wow.
so there's a lot of interest in it and went very well. So it'll be something that we'll look to do next year.
That's awesome.
That's
Thank
great
you.
to hear.
Sorry, Zach.
You're doing a great job.
You got great weather, Marty.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, I personally attended this item when I was out there, and it was great to see all the people out and about. Again, the weather couldn't have been much better, I don't think, but I think we pulled together a lot of pumpkins for not having anything about a week before the event. So I will say that I think we did some pretty
It's
good
probably
marketing at the end. But
Good that you didn't have anything a week before the event, because we
Yeah.
did a pumpkin a week before and it melted.
Yeah,
on
sure.
The
So-
Monday before.
I don't know if we needed the pumpkin, but more or less the pledge that said you're going to bring a pumpkin.
Oh,
That would have
okay.
been fantastic. Because we had, I think, about 0 at the beginning of that last week. So overall, really well, and the plan will be to do this again next year. So.
Nice work.
All right, the survey. So I want to get touch base on the survey. Again, I'm Zach. I haven't quite met everyone at the Parks Commission meeting, only because I don't go to a lot of them, and not because I don't want to, just because I'm pretty busy. So I'm Zach. I'm the city administrator. If I haven't met you, please stop by, say hi, or ask a question, or 6 is all good. And so I'm here to just present the survey that was completed by Morris Leatherman. Mr. Leatherman is a much better presenter than I am with the information, and he can spit it out, and he's really good at presenting, so I'm going to do my best. I will tell you that it's probably better if you watch the actual one on the Dayton website, but I'm here to provide just some snippets, and we can ask questions as we go. It was a 400 random sample survey of Dayton residents, again completed in the month of August, so it is a couple months old. The reason why we waited to get it to the Parks Commission is because we wanted the City Council to weigh in, provide questions, provide comments before we brought it all to the commissions. We have an interview time of 14 minutes on average. It was noted by Mr. Leatherman we did have somebody on the phone for 45 minutes, so that's fantastic to hear. Those people are what we call boosters, is what I heard, or that they always like to boost the community, so they're always talking about stuff. Non-response rate of 5.5%, but typically we're within 5% of our mark, 95 out of 100 cases. So if you increase the sample size by, I think it's 600 people, then you get it 4%, plus or minus. So it doesn't make much sense to increase that amount of sample when you only get a 1% difference in change. And it doesn't matter the population. It could be 400 people in Dayton, 400 people in the state of Minnesota. I'm not a stats guy. That's not what I do. But from what Mr. Leatherman had said is that it doesn't matter how many people you do or big area it is, 400 is just a plus or minus 5%. That's just how stats work. I don't know how. To ask him if you have more questions. 65% were cell phone only, 8% were landline only, so we did hit some households that were only landlines, and they do still exist, and then 27% were both. Demographics, so the big question was always how we're going to hit every single demographic. That's been a big thing from everybody, and we hit about every single demographic pretty much as perfectly as you can for percentage-wise. So if you look at how long they've lived here in the community is the first section, less than 5, 22%, 22% 6 to 10, and then we also hit 29% have been here for over 20 years, so roughly about 25% per breakdown of that percentage. an area. Age 18 to 34, 32, 35 to 54, 38, and 55 and over 30%. Again, about a 33% clip on each one of those. Households with seniors, 22%. Households with children, 40%. Financially stressed versus financially comfortable. Significantly more people are financially comfortable. From what Mr. Leatherman had mentioned is that this is something similar you would see to a community like Edina or Eden Prairie. In that southwest corner of the metro is typically where you see this much financial comfortableness when people are answering questions. Typically it's more financially stressed than you'd see on the screen today, so which is a good thing for us overall. And then again, about 50-50 between men and women. So they do have a very extensive database. I'm not sure how they get all the information they do, but they have a list of people and they can dissect it. If one person doesn't answer, they could find somebody with a very similar demographic relatively quickly in the database that he has. So I'll get into specific items. I did bring in a few items that aren't maybe related to the parks directly, but they are indirectly related to the parks, and one of them is quality of life. It is very impressive that we have a 95% excellent or good rating of quality of life in the city of Dayton. I think some of that has to go to the parks as well, so that's why I left it in here, because it's not just, Maple Grove's down the road and we live in a rural area. There's other things that are related to that, and parks has to be part of that quality of life rating. So that is very important and impressive to have. I think the note on something here was, we'll get to another one. Like most about the city, one of the top ones you can see there is parks and trails. Rural open space, 9%. And these are based on a breakdown, so this is an open-ended question. Whatever you want to say, like most about the city, it was an open-ended question. They could say whatever they liked. And then we broke them down by categories as best you could. If anything scored more than 2%, it got a category. If it didn't score more than 2%, it didn't get a category. It just got clumped into the none or scattered area. So typically, they relied somewhere in parks and trails, being safe, pretty much what you see in a rural community, and not so much a, when I say inner city or suburb area, typically is what you see, small town feel, rural open space, stuff like that.
So what did this?
Oh, yep.
Sorry.
No. Please ask questions as we go. It's way easier.
What is the scattered?
So that could mean that they maybe had 6 different answers, but none of them landed in any one of those 12 categories above it. They were, it might be.
That's kind of what I assumed, but I just wanted to make sure.
They might have had 4 or 5 answers, but none of them actually met any one of those 12 categories above. They might be, just trying to think of something off the wall. So, I like the trees that are in the community or something, and they don't match any of the one of the 12 categories above, so it's considered a scattered answer. City service ratings. So this is one of them that I do want to touch base on because it may not relate again directly to parks, but it does proportion-wise. Specifically, we can look at park maintenance and park facilities, both rating in the favorable category of at least 85%, which is pretty dang impressive in my personal opinion. This is significantly higher, so if you look at all of these city service ratings, the average is about an 82%, which compared to the greater metro area is about 2% higher than what you see in most communities across the board. The one that is dragging that percentage down is the city drinking water, which I don't think anybody would complain about or be surprised that you saw that on that screen for city service. It was not surprising to city staff either. That we know that's the case. So, any questions on city service ratings?
Nice work.
Awesome on police.
Yeah, we did.
We talk about it all the time. We kind of take it for granted, but it's nice to see them get that nod.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's great. Like I said, it's not just staff either. It is Parks Commission, it is Planning Commission, it is Council that makes those things happen. So, and we appreciate that.
It's nice to see fire too. It's too bad John's not here.
Yeah, I know.
Give him a nod, but
Yeah, well, you missed a meeting. That's what happens. Development would like to see. So this is a big thing. I wanted to add this in here. I didn't add the ones of the opposite, which you'd not like to see, and the reason because most of the people said they don't really care what they would not like to see. Similar to what you see as development you'd like to see is basically none. But they also didn't care if there was any more development. But what I did want to highlight in this one is that they do want to see more parks. That is one of the items that hit on as a big item is that they want to see more parks, they want to see more trails, they want to see pools and splash pads, a community center. I think this community is now looking at an area that they want to have to be able to bring the community together, and there isn't that spot currently. LC Stevens is probably something that's the closest to it. which isn't fully developed out yet, and really doesn't have that central item to bring people there. I mean, there's the river and stuff, and there's a few smaller items, but nothing really to keep you there once you're there. So, but again, we like to see these things only because it's good. This is an open-ended question again, and again categorized into whatever people had mentioned the most. And again, not surprising that almost 60% of the community said they don't want any development at all. So, but they also, on the flip side, if you watch the full version, they also don't care if there's new development at all either. They don't. There's nothing that they wouldn't like to see. So, not sure how to really take that into consideration. But city characteristics. So this is something that may not be directly again related to parks, but does relate to how we get to parks and who uses the parks. Is what do they want to see too much of, about right, and too few or too little of. So the base of the green side is we kind of what Mr. Leatherman had mentioned is that we look at what's the difference between the red and the green. That's pretty much what we look at. If there's big discrepancies between too much and too few, that means we probably have to get on one side or the other of those things. Assisted living, one level associations, affordable housing, starter homes, mainly the ones that we wanted to see more of. But also, trails and parks are listed there again. Parks and open spaces again listed there as well. Job producing businesses again, a big one that we want to see. So as we get more job producing businesses, they're going to need more trails to be able to go walk on, because that's what people do on their lunch breaks or their 15-minute breaks. They go on walks, and we see a lot of those people out and about on the trails. Out in Dayton. Any questions specifically on city characteristics that people would like to see? I think we were a little surprised at staff level that everyone was really concerned about the amount of high-end housing, which I don't see us really having. Maybe high-end housing depends on where you're at in life. High-end housing to myself would be something over $1 million or something.
Yeah, I was
but-
surprised to see that too.
Yeah.
I think we have a good mix, but
I would agree. I think we have a really good mix, but like I said, some of the, with you looking at the percentages between the green and the red, high-end housing is the only one that's
Yeah.
not that, quite that way.
I also wonder if people know like all of the
Yeah.
like lines of Dayton versus
Could be.
Maple Grove or
Yeah.
Champlain.
Right.
Because like literally across the into Champlain, our house is right on the line of Champlain, and
Yep.
there are $1 million+ homes
Sure.
right across from our
Sure.
humble
So
area.
They might take that as Dayton, that is correct. Yeah, it's hard for people to understand where you're at too, really. I mean,
Yeah.
if you live in the south end of town, you probably think you're really pretty much in Maple Grove. Even though you may know you're in Dayton, but you might feel like you're in Maple Grove more. And it might be just the opposite of someone like where you're at, Kai, is that we see it over there. It's $1 million home that's in Champlain or whatever, so.
I'm surprised that anyone answered too many or too much for restaurants and for just businesses overall. I'm
Too many
confused.
restaurants.
I'm very confused.
There was a few answers if you watch the full thing. Again, I bits and pieces out as best I could, but also provided a little more context. But if you watch the full thing, you'll see like some people don't want any job producing businesses in town either. They say we're already too close to Champlain, we're already too close to Maple Grove, we're too close to Rogers. You can go to those locations and get whatever you want to and not have it here. So just, I guess, different viewpoints of what people think. So
Interesting.
not a bad, viewpoint though by any means. Park and recreation facilities. So these ones are going to be specific to Park and Rec. And this is how the people view Park and Rec facilities in Dayton. So 72% said good, 18% said excellent. I think some of the notes in here that I wanted to touch base are, so 91% in total between good, excellent, or good, which is roughly 11% higher than most of the greater metro area. So 90% typically means that you have a good current mix of park and recreational facilities and amenities in the city. There you go. Amenities that meet the needs of your household, 90%. Again, great. That's 9% higher than the greater metro area as well. Fantastic to see those answers. And again, I think it's something that we need to make sure we keep up on too. The high percentages are really fantastic, but now it sets a benchmark for us that people are expecting that we're at today, where we're going to be at in the next time we do another survey. And it sets a good benchmark for us overall.
Have we ever done a survey like this before?
No.
Didn't think so.
So this is a one data point kind of thing, so
Right.
it is difficult to portray where are we at today, where are we going to be in the future, where were we even last year or 5 years ago.
Right.
I think it's important that we do these surveys from city staff's perspective, because then we can get a gauge of where are we trending to, where do we need to pick up at, and where can we change to be able to adjust and amend based on what our residents are saying, so.
So is there a plan for like a cadence of? how
Yep,
they
so the
can-
plan will be at least, well, right away, the plan would be to get more data points, so we'll probably wait 2 to 3 years, somewhere in there between the next time we do another one. But it really depends on how much we grow. If we continue to grow as much as we have been, we'll probably do them every 2 to 3 years. Or at least recommend for council to do them every 2 to 3 years, just because then you get a good grasp of where things are changing to. As more people move into town, they typically are coming from inner city communities and they expect a lot of services, they want a lot more things, and that means that we need to keep up on what those things are, because the 90% of amenities meet your family household is fantastic for now, but as people move in from, they're moving out here from even Maple Grove, we get a lot of Plymouth, we get a lot of Golden Valley, New Hope, they have full amenities and parks for their community, and we don't have that here, so you may see a change from 90% down. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing, it just means we need to figure out what our right mix is.
As the city grows, will the number increase from 400 to a larger
Nope.
number? It'll always stay 400. That's
We
the
can-
sweet spot, huh?
That's the statistical sweet spot.
Yeah.
We can do more, like I mentioned, I think it's like, I think you have to do 1,000 or something to get the plus or minus 4% instead of plus or minus 5%. So is it really worth it, that much more? I can't remember what the dollar amount was. I think this survey was like $18,000, something like that. And the next survey up was, it's probably
2.5.
30,000, 35,000. Is it worth the extra money to be able to get a 1% change? Probably not. Doesn't mean you can't do it,
Right.
but,
No, I'm just curious.
it's a good question, because those are, again, my math brain doesn't work stats wise, so I can't answer the question. Importance to you, so what we wanted to check out is how important is parks to your quality of life, and how important is parks to your value of your home. And so when you see varies and somewhats and not at all, that's what it relates to, is your parks. So this relates back to how important is parks to the quality of life, your quality of life, and your value of your home. People said it is very important, which is a pretty good stagger. And I was surprised to see that many people think it really does affect the value of their house. Somewhat or vary is 88%, and vary or somewhat for quality of life is, again, 83%. So people do value parks and recreational facilities in Dayton overall, and I think that's something to be able to move forward with and say, this is a very important thing to be on, and how do we make it better in the future for the parks overall. Any questions on that item? I was trying to find if I can find like a note here at all from referencing other or greater metro area cities of what they see. I don't see anything here so far. LC Stevens Park. So we did want to see what people's thoughts are of LC Stevens Park right now, as we have that as our only premier park or really community park at all. Again, roughly, what's that, 56%? Think that it's at least good, or take that back. Good, excellent, or no. I don't know what that one means, no. 57%.
Wasn't it, have you been to LC
That's
Stevens
what
Park?
Park?
Have
I
you
was gonna
been
say. I thought it was
LC
if
Stevens?
you'd been.
And then of the ones that have been, how do they rate it?
Oh, maybe there you go. There you go. That's why. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Those numbers don't make any sense. Yeah, so 56% say if they've been there that it's good or excellent, and if they haven't been there, then it's just a no. I think what it means is that we need to get more people to LC Stevens Park. That's what I took out of it, or at least staff took out of it, is that we need to somehow get people to LC Stevens Park, and getting them there is probably the most difficult thing.
Right, but that will come as we develop it. I mean,
That's correct.
the reality is right now there's not much to do there.
And I think I noted that at
So-
the beginning, yeah.
But once we have some premier park stuff, like I'm on the email list for it's like Minnesota Parents newsletter, and it just sends a newsletter once a week at least to
Sure.
anyone who signs up, and it's a lot of people that has stuff like 15 parks to check out this weekend and stuff. So we could totally get on some lists like that once we're
Sure.
at that point.
Could always accelerate it. It's too bad we had a year off from any kind of development down there, but
Yeah. Typically, we always run into is budget constraints. That's typically how it always runs to now. It's just because we don't have any additional levy dollars going towards any of the parks. We end up just having a funding shortage of what can we afford, and the fact that parks have doubled in price over the last 4 years probably, it doesn't help either. So
right.
those are all considered not must-haves, even though depending on what your view is, it's probably a must-have, so. Elm Creek Park Reserve. So this one, it makes a little more sense to me. So have you visited the park in the past year? Is 39%. And of those 39%, was it a major factor for you moving to Dayton? And mostly it was major or minor was about 55% said it's a major or minor decision or factor that I moved to Dayton, and 45% said, nope, not a factor at all of why I moved to Dayton whatsoever. I think this is a bit surprising for us based on the size of Elm Creek Park Reserve, as it is by far the largest park in Dayton and not owned by Dayton at all. But yeah, I think we were a little surprised to see that numbers. But
Yeah, I'm surprised with the visited.
yes, only 39% have actually visited the park of the 400 people surveyed.
Yeah.
It's at a third of them, so
Like our family's there weekly.
yeah.
Well, that almost makes you wonder. Those
Yes.
numbers tend to align with the LC Stevens numbers.
Yep.
Which goes to show you that even though this is obviously important to everyone in this room, the parks are, that there's plenty of people that just don't utilize the parks.
Right.
Kind of goes back to our conversation last week or last month where we got the sheet here I already read about the horseback riding and snowmobile trails, yeah, that might be really, clearly it is important to certain people, but when you're thinking about the greater number, there's a lot of things that a lot of people just don't, either just don't care about, or they're not, you know what I mean? It's just, it's fascinating, because to me, like, that would be, I would, on the left, I'd probably say it was like, I was thinking maybe 80%, and on the right is maybe, closer to 50 or more. Just because it's a big selling point for our family, but obviously not for everyone else's. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly.
And clearly, it's just not that important to other people. So it just makes you think. When you're looking at budgets and different things, it makes you think that maybe none of this is as important as we all think it is. I mean, seriously.
A big thing that we look at too, at least from staff's perspective, and I know from council's perspective, is how do we connect to Elm Creek Park? That's always what we're doing with trails. Is
That's
how
what
do
I
we
was
connect
thinking, too.
to Elm Creek Park? And based on this survey response, I don't know if that's the biggest thing we should be connecting to. I'm not. Staff is still trying to figure out exactly what the next steps are, and I think trying to provide council with information. But we're always trying to link to Elm Creek Park. I know some of the trails that got moved up from you guys with. Okay, we need to prioritize this side and this side and this side and those segments that are missing to get us to connect to Elm Creek Park. I don't know if there is much needed as much anymore. And not saying they're not needed, because they all are, but we need to prioritize those or not. I think that's some of the big things that Parks Commission needs to look at overall.
You probably
Right.
have 40% of the population that doesn't have, I would use the term maybe safe walking or biking access to
Yeah,
Rivers Park
that's what I
District,
was-
because you've got
Yeah.
a huge chunk of neighborhoods that can't just get there.
Yep.
So you have to load everyone up in the car and go. You can't just jump on a path and bike there with your family. So that, I'm not saying that's why it's 61%. I'm saying that
But
it probably
it
weighs.
could be. That's what I was gonna say too, is most of the time, you go to the parks that you can get to
Sure.
safely
And so it
from
could be
walking and
vice versa
biking.
too, right?
And so it can be partly that. I mean, at least that's how I was when I had small kids. I didn't want to pack them up.
Yeah.
It was where can I get safely by
Yeah.
walking?
So currently developments that can't get there are anything on the north side of town in the River Hills, Cypress Cove, Ione Gardens development, Diamond View Estates, Riverwalk. Brayburn Trails technically can't make it to the park right now currently on a safe route that's on a road. The only one that can is Sundance, and they technically aren't connected to Sundance. With the developments that you guys have seen, or council's for sure seen, is DCM Farms. I believe you guys saw that one as a preliminary concept. That will connect up Brayburn Trails and that whole development there. So that's roughly 400-ish homes total, somewhere right around there. So that'll be a significant portion as well, but yeah, currently those developments don't have, Territorial Trail's another one, doesn't have a, obviously there's lots of one-off homes that have been here for a long, long time that has no access, but.
How is DC Farms going to get to the park?
So DCM Farms will connect down to Sundance Green, so that'll be the connection point from Brayburn Trails. They'll connect through a trail down DCM Farms to 114th, sorry, technically, 114th Avenue will turn into 113th, whatever that goes to Sundance Entertainment currently.
Sure.
And then they'll connect up into Sundance and then be able to cross over at the Rush Creek Parkway Fernbrook connection point.
And there's nothing we can do to secure that A little bit better than playing Frogger across the road,
I
especially
would-
in mornings like today where it's really dangerous?
I would love to say the answer is yes, we most certainly can, but unfortunately that's not our road. So we do have conversations frequently with Hennepin County about making a better connection point there. Long term, trying to think of which one's first really. We're going to really push on the county, or staff has really been pushing on the county with the help of the council to push on that connection point. The long-term plan, I think, is 2027. We're looking at trying to push the county to do some sort of roundabout there, or some sort of ulterior motive of traffic control to be able to get people across to that location. There's also a legacy project going on with Three Rivers Park District that'll be just south, technically. It'll be on the north side of Maple Grove, just south of Dayton. But we'll connect up through, there is a grove of trees in the middle of Sundance Greens development that's just next to Sundance Woods that has a trail through it. And that will connect up into Maple Grove. And then there is a underpass that'll be at the bottom of the hill. So if you were to go past that intersection headed south on Fernbrook towards Maple Grove, go down and hit a bridge and then come back up, that'll be raised up. The bridge will be raised up as well, and an underpass will be made there to be able to connect into the Three Rivers Park District.
Cool.
That's a legacy project currently by Three Rivers Park District that is being completed with the whole Pulte development currently in Maple Grove. They're negotiating, I believe, the last little bits of it. It's planned in 26 or 27.
Because there is a ton of trees that have been removed.
Yes, so that's what that's for.
Portion too.
So that's what that's for. So the bridge is going to get replaced at the same time. So that whole roadway will be shut down totally for a certain amount of time because the whole bridge will be replaced, the whole road will be raised up, and then the underpass will be put in by Three Rivers Park District to be able to connect up safely. So that'll be your safe connection.
Wow.
But I don't know which one's going to be first, the Rush Creek Parkway intersection, which we will push on the county for,
Right.
or the Three Rivers Park District one, which is already planned. So. Yes
All right.
and
How
no.
we digress. Back to-
I am
go ahead.
curious how this might change over the next
Yes.
survey
Sure.
too. Just, I mean, if I had to hazard a guess, I would assume Dayton is probably getting younger in average age as more young
Sure.
families move in, and so yeah, I don't know. I'm just curious to see how that'll change.
Yeah, I think we all are. It's just, like I said, one data point's really good to use for information, but two bad data points is so much better for
Agreed.
projections and where we headed. So, any more questions on Elm Creek Park Reserve? Okay, property tax increase. So this one was specifically for parks. So we've asked residents, would you support a property tax increase for whatever those items are? Was not set at a certain dollar amount, but was set at a basically amount of whatever dollar amount it is. Would you like to put it in there? The highest ones were Veterans Memorial, picnic shelters, additional pedestrian and bicycle crossings, a dock and a fishing pier, and a construction of a large community park with athletic fields and playgrounds. Those received at least a 79% rating or higher in support. An off-leash dog park, construction of a splash pad and a band shell for concerts got at least 66%, and then anything below that was the snowmobiling trails, horseback riding trails, construction of an indoor-outdoor sports complex, which is the lowest one, and then pickleball courts.
That's fascinating because at our last meeting, we were approached by the CDAA for our new sports complex, and we were approached about snowmobile trails and horseback trails. And then our whole point was that we didn't necessarily think we should be putting more funds towards those things. They don't necessarily benefit everyone, and yet all three of those were the ones that were the most opposed.
Correct. The indoor-outdoor sports complex, so that one includes an indoor field house or a dome with grass and artificial turf. That's not listed up there, but that was what the actual question was.
Right, and so that's different than.
It is different.
That's why we
That's
listed them
different.
differently than a large community park with ball fields, so it'd be more outdoor play,
Yeah.
like
I just
soccer
wanted to
fields,
make sure.
lacrosse,
Right.
baseball.
They
And we
saw that it
sus-
was different than the CD.
Right.
Yes, and the
Right.
CDA one likely is probably the indoor fields with a dome or an actual
Right.
field house facility, typically for like a basketball or baseball facilities in the indoors with artificial turf athletic fields. So the
Sure.
full question was that.
Yeah. No, and that makes sense because, like, with the fields we have now with CDA, we talked about like we have fields that they don't want to use right now because they're not at their level, and
Yes.
that's where we keep going back and forth. Right? Is they're wanting, the goal is for us to go out and buy land and have a new facility for them, but we already have facilities that aren't being used that, so maybe we have a grass infield added at some of these local fields, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Because we'd love to see all this stuff get used that's already here.
Right.
That would be the goal.
That would be the goal, right? Instead of, because when Matt brings up the cost of land, whether it's 2030, 2040, my head starts spinning. It's like, okay, how much is it going to cost if we just add grass to the infield over there? And then you guys can it's up to your standards now, like trying to find some sort of a middle ground, because it's just to do some of these things, as you can see how people have voted or how they were surveyed. It's just it doesn't seem like there's an overwhelming response that this is what everyone wants.
I would agree. I think these are great items for the park commission to take and be able to utilize as, okay, here's what we need to do next, here's what we should focus on, here's what we should add, specifically items. There's some specific items like picnic shelters and a splash pad. Then there's also bigger items like the large community park or docks, which are smaller items again that we can probably note them. Pretty cost efficient. We can add a dock or a fishing pier somewhere. Maybe that's Diamond
Couple of
Lake.
them, yeah.
Maybe that's Mississippi River. I'm not sure. I think it's pretty shallow right there in front of L.C. Stevens Park there, but maybe we can get something out there. I'm not sure.
Do fly fishing lessons out there.
You could do fly fishing lessons out there, yeah. I did
Diamond
say
Lake.
somebody the other day.
Diamond would have to be a long one. It's pretty shallow for a long ways.
Correct. Yeah, I know there's a small dock there, obviously, when the DNR
For the
puts
DNR,
there.
yep.
Yeah, but that's not really designed, I don't think, for fishing. You can't fish off of it, don't get me wrong, but
It's for
From
dock
a-
diving for a dog.
yeah.
Just saying.
From a fishing perspective, Marty, would there be a better fish population in Diamond Lake or in the river? Or is it both not great places to go fishing?
From what I understand, the river's better than Diamond Lake.
Okay.
Diamond Lake was stocked by the DNR. DNR was stocked by the DNR for, Diamond Lake was stocked by the DNR for a little while, but they haven't stocked it in many, many years. So from what I understand, there's a lot more species in the river, and that's where the majority of fish are, unless we can get into something with DNR where they would restock that Diamond Lake. That would be another option there.
It used to be a brooding pond for walleyes in the 80s, and then they would clear it out.
Yep. Yep. And I think that, what's the other lake up there by the property?
Rush.
Dubay Lake.
Dubay Lake was a stock lake as well by the DNR for some time as well.
Okay, so I have a different kind of question. As I'm looking at it, and we have a little bit different chart.
Yeah,
where it
it's, yes,
talks about the-
so it's just it's either if you support it,
proposed-
whether that's strong support or just support, it's
Right.
all added into support,
Right.
otherwise you're opposing. Yep.
I get that part. My question is, this is all about a tax increase. So does that mean that this would be something that would end up being written up at election time and people are then voting on it? Or
So.
do you
the-
get, do you
yeah, I
understand
get your
my
question, yes.
I'm just trying to understand the whole process.
Sure.
Because what I'm wondering is, I mean, the reality is your lowest thing of support is 60 to 38. That is still a majority that are going to. So like, when we look at this chart and we're saying, oh, nobody wants indoor, outdoor, when you really look at it in your two bases, the majority is still saying yes. And so we need to keep that in mind. I still think we need to prioritize by this, but overall, if everything is still in support, everything on this list has more than half of a majority support, then it tells me the city overall wants more. And I'm just curious, what are those next steps? Is it a vote? And if so, when it does go to the polls, what constitutes if you go forward with it or not? Is it a 50-50? Is it majority? Do you know what I'm trying to
Yes,
ask? I'm just
yes.
trying to understand the whole thing so that I know.
Yep. So in
As we make
total,
decisions.
yeah, so the question is a good question. In total, if you can get donations, have other funding sources. Right now, currently, we're using park dedication dollars, trail dedication dollars. If you can do those things without having to go to a referendum, is what your question is.
Yeah,
You don't.
thank you.
It is not required that you go for a referendum for any of these items. It's not required. However, it is required if you're going to use a bonding dollars to do any of these items. So, for example, you can utilize. Let's do the indoor-outdoor sports complex. That's going to be a large dollar amount.
Yeah.
Let's talk. It's probably $10 million for the land, the facilities, all said and done, everything. And it might be even more than that. It might be 15 or 20. I don't know the number, but we don't have the money just sitting around. Nor do I expect a donation from anybody to cover that cost. So we'd have to go for a bond for that. And in order to go for a bond for a referendum for park items, you have to go to the voters. And you have to, again, get a 50% passing rate.
Okay.
They don't recommend you going out, or from what Mr. Leatherman had mentioned, anything less than 50 or 60% of the case. They recommend, I think it's 50%. Maybe it was even 45. Something percentage-wise, he said, I would not go out for anything less than this percentage. And I think he said everything you have on this list is above that percentage point. So you could go for any one of these for referendum, and I would have a strong support from all of the research that he's done that said you'd probably pass any one of these items on a park referendum if you were looking for specifics based on what I'm receiving from this information. I think he did one most recently, I think in Apple Valley. It took him about 2 years to try to get all the information out of the public, try to get information out of staff, what are they looking for exactly, because it has to be exactly what we're getting. So it's, in Apple Valley went out for like a $80 million referendum bond. And they had like a 45 or 50% chance of support for what they were doing based on all of their survey work, and it did pass. It didn't pass at 50%. It was less than that because typically you'll get there and there'll be a dollar amount associated with it, and would you support this much dollar amount, and then it goes down as soon as people know how much it costs your house,
Right.
and it's like, ooh, well, I don't know if I can do that. So I'll support a property tax increase for whatever you want. It just depends on how much it is.
Right.
Overall.
And
That's
I
how the
understand
process
that.
works.
I was
So
just
not
curious about the
required.
process, So thank you.
You're not required to go for any one of these items, but if you are going to bond for them, then it is required for a referendum.
Right.
Zach, there's nothing that stops council from just increasing taxes.
Yep,
and
so
doing
you
that
can- the
if that's
council
what
can- yep.
They wanted to do.
Yep, so council can increase tax levy, for example, start building up a balance. Let's say we want to start putting away $500,000 a year towards these items. Council can levy for that every single year without a referendum, without a voter feedback. We'd obviously probably want some resident feedback on that, but again, doesn't mean it's required. And then be able to stockpile some money to be able to do it. If we do it with cash or essentially pre-levied dollars, then it does not need to go up for a vote. And it could just happen.
Okay, thank you for explaining
Yes.
the process.
Yes, it is a little confusing. so-
Because I watched the city council meeting with this, but he didn't fully explain that portion of it either.
No,
And I
he did
just
not.
wasn't curious, I was just curious how the referendums worked.
Yep. So only if you're going out for bond do you have to do a referendum. If you levy for dollars previously and then collect them over time, you can then spend them on whatever you'd like in the future for, again, priorities. Hopefully we'd top down, but doesn't mean we have to.
All right, thank you for explaining.
Yes. No problem. Any other questions on this slide? This is a good one. Next one I think is about the dollars. So then I said, okay, those property tax increases that you wanted to say for park improvements, how much would you increase your percentage by month to be able to fund those park improvements? Again, this is by month. So if $6 was on the screen, it's actually 6 times 12, which is $72 dollars a year. So I think there was a comment. I was trying to remember what the average was. And again, I don't do stats well, so.
I think it's right.
Okay,
A
yep,
little
so
bit
it says
different
that
than
they
what
would,
we're seeing in here.
on average, roughly a $7.17 per month property tax increase, or $86 a year, specific for park improvements.
Right.
Now, that is actually quite a bit more than you probably think it is. I don't remember off the top of my head, but for a referendum, I don't even want to spitball a number because I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's roughly, currently, if you were to do $30 a year over 20 years, it's roughly $20 million total for the city. So if you had an increase of $30 for each individual's house, on the average house, so that's a $575,000 home. That's the average house value in Dayton currently. $30 a year for 20 years is roughly $20 million for the city. So it is a healthy amount. So if you think of $86 total a year, that's a healthy amount of dollars for park improvements that the city is willing to, or the residents should say, are saying that they would be accepting
Yeah.
of. Any questions on this one?
I wish there was a way to know too with, I mean, because we keep saying things are going to get more and more expensive the longer we wait to do them. And it's like, are they okay if we were to just say, all right, let's do all of it right now and get it done?
Take
while
that back.
it's cheaper?
Take that back. I think I misquoted. I think it was $30 a month. I'm gonna get back to you guys. I'll comment back
$30 a
on
month,
that.
it looks like.
Yeah,
no, or
yeah, that was a park
something.
improvement one way over there. I'm gonna have to go back and read my math, because I feel like $30 a year is not enough for 20 million bucks for 20 years. That is not enough. Trying to redo my math in my head. I feel like I misspoke on that one,
That's
so I
right.
wanna
It's all right.
apologize.
Math,
We-
it's
we
late.
get it.
Yeah, well, it's late, and also I'm trying to remember the numbers in my head of what it actually figures out to be, so. I'm gonna say
Because
that
we'd
what I
be-
just said was wrong, so.
Yeah,
apologize.
because right now we're saying we don't have the money to do
Mm-hmm.
these sorts of things, so we'd either need to save up over time and then they will cost more because of inflation, or we put it to a vote to bond and then
That's correct.
we could get things done. Okay.
That is correct. Yeah, if we did a bond, we'd have to have a specific amount of what we're doing specifically for this project. We want to basically have the whole thing architect out and what we want to have and how much it's
Right.
going to cost, or roughly, engineer's estimate, and then go for a vote. And then it would cost you this much money per month on an average house.
Could we do multiple items in a bond?
You could, you'd have to have individual questions for each
Right.
individual item. So let's say you wanted to do I'm gonna go back to the previous slide here just for a second. You wanted to
Yeah.
do 4 of those individual items, and it would be X amount of dollars per item.
Also
And it would
knowing
be-
that we can get some of them done through other funding and
Correct.
things.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to do the splash pad, community park, the
Yeah,
big
the big
ticket
ones.
items.
You could do those individually if you asked a referendum question.
Right.
Again, you'd have individual referendum questions for each individual thing.
Correct.
You want to make sure that you don't lay it out where people want a splash pad, but on a large community park, now where are we putting the splash pad?
Right.
So now you got to make sure you got a spot to put it, basically, is the question. Scout, anything else? Other questions on that? I'll get back to you on how much
Good
that means.
discussion.
I just think it's great, like, when you look at what the people have asked for, like, you could literally do with LC Stevens, we've talked about a lot of these things. If that's where rather than going out and trying to acquire new land, we can put in the large community park / dock / hit 3 or 4 of those things all at
Splash
LC
pad.
Stevens with what we already have there, rather
Yep.
than trying to go out and raise funding for, more land, or trying to
Yeah.
find land,
10
or
million
if
for
you're trying to
land.
even find where the land is. I mean, that's, yeah, just hearing Matt talk about future land every time, I'm like, man, why don't we maximize what we already have?
Yeah.
And I feel like at
Exactly.
LC Stevens, like with what Zach showed, truly, we could hit 3 or 4 of those things all at LC Stevens and say, hey, this is the future of Dayton, that this is the place.
Yeah.
With a
And just put
5-year
in-
push. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and just
Start to
incorporate
finish.
all those things at LC Stevens and.
Yeah, the large community park did include athletic fields and playgrounds, so we wouldn't be able to put the large, I'm not saying that people don't want
Yeah.
LC
Okay.
Stevens, but
For that
they'd
whole
want to
work
have
there.
the athletic fields to go with it. What doesn't mean that it's not one athletic field or the other. I don't know what that would tally out to be. Like, everyone wants soccer, everyone wants baseball, or everyone
Sure.
wants lacrosse or whatever they are. But just with athletic fields would be what they'd be looking for.
Okay, thank you.
And I will get back to you guys all on how much dollars that actually means on average, so that you know what that actually means.
Thank you.
Yep. Dayton Heritage Days. So what we wanted to do is provide a pulse of where we're at. So Dayton Heritage Days has been around for a long time. It is not a city facility and not a city-run event. However, we wanted to figure out where are we at for our second event, which is Holly Dayton, that we've kind of established as our big event that we run for as a city. Where are we at compared to that? So Dayton Heritage Days has been running for a long, long time. We wanted to figure out how people view Heritage Days. And again, it's been around for a long time, so how do people know about it? Have they attended it? So on and so forth. So we asked the question is, did you attend or not attend? And of the ones that have attended, how do you feel? So we had 66% that said it was at least good, good or excellent of an event. Again, this is not run by the city of Dayton. And then 31% of it have never attended Dayton Heritage Days. And what that was to try to get a benchmark for us was how are we doing on Holly Dayton? Holly Dayton is run for 1 year event, and so it's a good indicator of where we're at. Oh, failed to check my
It's
mic.
interesting that the not attend or haven't gone or haven't went to the park, they're all in that same kind of bracket, between 30 and 40s, high 40s.
Yep, I would agree.
I wonder how that correlates with a specific age group in a city.
I don't know that information. Again,
No,
Leatherman
that's
would
fine.
know it,
Just
but it's a good
spitballing.
good comment. Yeah. Holly Dayton has seen, again, we're at about a 44%, at least good rating, and then 54% have not attended the event at all. Again, good benchmark, event that's been around a long time versus where we're at, a 1 year event. Again, planning on that event again this year. I think that's December 5th, Thursday, December 5th. Will be Holly Dayton this year, so that's the plan. So FYI for everybody. It is on the calendar as well, and we will start advertising for it here pretty quickly since it is a month out. But hopefully we can get that not attended list down a little bit. But
Did you say the 5th?
Yeah.
yeah, December 5th. That is correct. I wanted to make sure I got the date right. Yep. So this was based on city staff's rating, or what they felt city staff, how they felt they did. Would they approve or strongly approve their rating? Again, very highly rated. 91% said city staff is rated to approve or not approve, or strongly approve. And I'm trying to figure out what that exactly means.
Nice work, guys.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is great.
I'd like to know
That's
more
the
about the
job
ladies,
performance.
sorry.
Do they approve or do they approve, disapprove, or strongly approve the job performance of city staff? It's over 11-to-1 ratio, favorable to unfavorable, based on, which is much higher than the metropolitan area average, which I think is owed to staff. Not me at all, but city staff that sees it people every day, because I don't see a lot of people sitting in the office here, so. City Hall contact, again, I wanted to put this in there because people do have contact with City Hall. We do talk to quite a few people. As you can see, we have, of the 400 we asked, yes, they've had contact in the last year, so it's almost 50% of the 400 people have contacted City Hall. And what are their service evaluations of positive or negative? That could be also Marty's staff as well as possibly police. Not everyone always looks at City Hall as just being this building overall. They also see it as being the overall city services. So I think it's more or less a good ode to staff again, that we're at least 80 to 90% viewed favorably or had a positive experience as well. That's, again, a good benchmark for us. We want to keep that increasing. We did ask people what their principal source of information. I thought this was very applicable to the Parks Commission, knowing that you're now part of Recreation. And how do people get their information from the city? Most of it comes from the newsletter, which we are still doing bi-monthly. I know there was discussions a few years ago, or at least a year or so ago, do we even continue the newsletter? Are people reading this thing? We put a lot of time and effort into it. It takes us a month to put it together. We spend a lot of time with Kelsey, who works in Public Works. She does all of the editing for it. She puts all the articles together. She spends a lot of time on this thing. And people do read it, though, which is fantastic to hear. And we do hear, but people don't get it, so I'm unsure. If you don't get the newsletter and you hear my thing here in the park, please reach out to us. We do our utility billing, and then we also do it based off of GIS from Hennepin County, so we try to hit every address. If we don't, it could be something wrong with the northwest, northeast, could be something, just a simple address fix that we can do and make sure we get everybody. But that should go everybody that does utility billing and overall lives in the city of Dayton. Even if you have an Osseo or a Maple Grove zip code, it still goes to you. City website and Facebook are the other two that were very, very high.
Is there an e-newsletter for the city?
There is not an e-newsletter. There's one that
Okay.
goes out
I just saw
right
it.
around the time of your utility bill. So if you don't get a utility bill, it's every other month on the odd months. If you do get a utility bill, it typically comes right around the same time you'll get your utility bill from the city of Dayton. If you don't want to receive one, let me know. And what is their preferred source of information? So we asked them, this is all you get it, what would you prefer to have? And what they broke it down to is based on the hard copy and based on the social media or the e-copy, how do you feel? Roughly, I think it's about 50-50 if we add in the newsletter, because that is a hard copy item, but the city website, social media, and e-newsletter are all basically that e-review. And that seems to be more what people are geared toward these days, is just, I want it at my fingertips, I want to be able to touch a button and get it and don't have to do anything for it.
Sure.
versus more or less I have to go search for the information like they would on the local newspaper or the newsletter that has to wait and come out to that.
I love the newsletter. I think it's great. I don't know.
It's great- it's great to
I
the
like
point.
it, and I would
Yeah.
love an e-newsletter version.
It's
but-
literally the only news I still get paper, and it's part of what I find charming about the city. Like it seriously, like that's why we live here, is because I feel like it makes me feel like I'm part of the community. And the kids read it with me, and they look through and see what's up. We mark calendar and different stuff. Like, it's kind of that old, because if you don't, we get the rest of our news and stuff all digitally. But it's like that for me is at least my tie to some form of a newspaper.
And maybe that's why people like it, because we're still that old. We're still that old here at Dayton. I guess that's it.
And the ink doesn't come off like on the Starship, so it's great.
It's just not. But it was good to know.
Fantastic.
Newsletter overall. So then we asked specifically based on the responses that we had, how does the newsletter view to you? Do you read it? 76% said they at least regularly read the newsletter that comes out. And how do they like the content? 93%. So they like the content that comes out, the format that it comes out in. And we have been playing around with that a little bit lately. I know Kelsey's been doing a little bit of work on the backside to try to figure out if she can make it easier to read, make it more fun, make it more vibrant, just something different so that people catches their eye. But overall, people do enjoy the content that's on there and also regularly read it. So if you do have something that you want to see on the newsletter from the Parks Commission, I think it's great that we get that on the newsletter.
Sure.
That's
Is
the
there
idea.
an email that could go out to people on the different commissions and stuff, just like giving us a heads up when
Yep.
you would need that kind of
Mhm.
stuff?
Yeah, most certainly can. Yeah, again, we'd rather we can add a page to it. That's not a big deal for us to add a page, but if Park Commission wants to put something out there or talk about contact this, contact that, what do you want for this, what are you thinking for this thing, let's get involved with the community overall and see how we can use that newsletter. If it's going to be so widely read, let's utilize it to our advantage.
For sure.
So, city website was the other one we talked about. We wanted to see how people are viewing that. We did ask if you have internet access at your house. I do know that's an issue with some folks in town still. If they don't have access, they typically have some sort of cellular or satellite one, but 5% still said they have no internet at their house. Again, I'm going to presume here that that's probably the older generation, but also could be the landline folks. Could be wrong though. And then if they did have internet access, did they view the city's website? And 71% said they did. So that is fantastic to see as well. And then also what we asked about the city website, of the people that use it and have used it, do you view it as excellent, good, or only fair? And roughly 96% or 92% ease of navigating and the content is good on there. We are attributing that from staff's perspective. We do get a lot of questions from people that call and go, how do I find this? How do I find that? I feel like a lot of the people that do the website, if you know where you're going, it's easy to navigate. If you don't know where you're going, it can be a bear, and totally understood that way. City staff is looking at revising the website next year with a company called Revise to be able to make it easier and more friendly like you'd see at other communities. So like a top 5 or 6 hitters that we see, those would rotate and switch on the front page, so at least you don't have to navigate to them. Make it a little easier to understand where can you do this, where can you do that, and then also make an actual search function that works. So currently our search function works to an extent, but not great.
Got it.
So maybe I just was listening to everything and not paying attention, but what about the app that the city put together?
Great question. I will say that we did push for the app quite a bit to try to get, again, more notifications. So it's that push notification versus that you have to go get the information. I will say that we haven't probably put as much focus on the app as much as we needed to. So that's one of the goals next year for staff, is to be able to utilize that app. And if we're not going to utilize it, we need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because we want it to be able to be a push asset, not a you have to go retrieve the information item. That was the goal of the app, and was be able to try to get everything involved. So we are getting the school district involved in that next year as well. So I had a conversation with the communications director with Noka Hennepin School District. So they're going to start putting information out there related to school closings, trails, school buses, other things like that they're going to try to work with. We're going to try to get them integrated in the system overall. Do the same thing with Elk River and the same thing with Osseo as well. And then also just getting more people involved in the process. We want people to be able to utilize that as, okay, if you want to advertise for a garage sale, you can do that on there. It's technically the residents app. There's stuff on there to ask for, put my garage sale up, I have this for sale, I want to do this, I have this going on, advertise for your event, whatever you have doing, is supposed to come from the residents, and there's a spot on the app for that.
Okay.
And so that's what we're gonna try to push for next year, but that's a great question, because I will say, I think it's just, there's just so many things to do, and trying to figure them all out is always, it's the integration part that's difficult,
Right.
not the actual getting them, but how do you use them? I think that's the last, social media, I think is the last one. Use of social media, I think people are starting to get away from that social media craze. Regularly use social media, 43%. And then if they use social media and they've been on the city's Facebook page, how do you rate it? Fairly well when they do go there, 92%. But we only see about 43% of the people actually utilizing Facebook or going to the city's social media pages. We do have an Instagram page as well. Not sure how well that's going. I don't touch that one, so I also don't touch the Facebook one either. But any questions overall on any of the slides I sent or talked about tonight? You can always go back to them. Or any questions you have overall on the survey that did not get touched if you were to watch it.
Well, this gives us great area of focus. Really
Really
does.
good,
I
Zach.
appreciate it.
The idea for the next survey would be to be able to get all the commissions involved with it, with asking questions that are related to these questions. So what we utilized was Morris Leatherman's kind of basic survey of resident, didn't call it resident feedback, it was resident relations, I think is what he called it. And so basically we utilized his base and then updated a few things here and there, added a couple things just to get some baselines for it, but overall we want to get the commissions involved and the staff involved overall next year, or next time we do this, and the residents, before we go out and ask questions. But this is a great starting point, and we will utilize it in the future for sure. But I will stand for any other questions. Thank you for the feedback and the time.
No, I appreciate all that you did to go over it. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right. Marty, the email that you included in our packet today, do you want to go through that, or is that just for our own reviewing?
That's just for your own information.
Okay, thank you. All right, notices and announcements. Next Park Commission meeting, December 3rd.
Is that it?
Yep.
Regular Tuesday evening.
Cool.
Tuesday.
Sounds good.
Awesome. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Close the meeting. Adjourn.